All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome into today's edition of the Futurist, episode 4, and we are joined by an absolute legend in the Web3 space today. I'm joined always by my co-host Hassan and Zan, and today we are joined by EllioTrades. Needs no introduction, one of the leading creators, one of the leading builders in the space, founder of Impostors and Gigamart. So really stoked to get this episode out there, and I think this is going to be really high value for any creators or any builders out there to kind of see the perspective from someone like Elio. So let's dive into it. Like the video down below and subscribe or follow on whatever podcasting platform you are watching. As of this week, we are listed on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Audible. So we are on every platform now. Really stoked to get these podcasts out every single week. And I would say today's guest is definitely a very high value guest. So Elio, welcome to the podcast. And if you want to just go ahead and dive in for someone who might not know yourself somehow, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for that introduction, Hustle. So my name's Elliot. I've been working in the crypto Web3 space since 2017. I came from a traditional sort of Web2 development background, had worked in startups across Los Angeles, been on the founder journey, building some cool stuff throughout probably about 8 years, had achieved venture funding, Series A funding, and scaled Web2 applications to six-figure user bases, lots of growth hacking. And overall, when we discovered crypto, one of my companies had just actually shuttered, and it wasn't the fault of the ops team. I was employee one there, and the sort of my mentor and one of the co-founders had no idea that the sort of one of the other co-founders had sort of been mismanaging the funding and kind of using it like a personal piggy bank. And so, sort of like founder transparency and I guess doing what you're supposed to do, not just for the communities, right, which wasn't as much of a thing, but for the company and your coworkers and your colleagues, your comrades, was a really big issue for me. And I had seen it go wrong. And one of the things that attracted me to crypto was seeing that we had this ability to kind of like autonomously participate in a decentralized way with all these cool startups. And so initially, I had come off of a very intense, very emotional journey in the startup world, and was really excited that I could participate in what felt like the new startup environment without necessarily being knee deep in eating, sleeping, and breathing all these projects. And so that was where I initially was attracted to. Learning about Bitcoin was an amazing journey. But what first really got me was, it was 2017, alts were going crazy, and there was a lot of optimism in the room about what was going to happen with altcoins, about what the potential for new decentralized protocols and networks could achieve. Obviously, at that time, there was a lot of, here's the top 10, apps in the world. Let's go ahead and make, the crypto version of them. Here's Airbnb blockchain, here's Uber on the blockchain or whatever. And that was, it seemed to compute on a sort of slide deck style of understanding. And it was just something I felt so passionately about. I quickly wore through the ear of everyone who would listen to me in real life. And so I started talking to the internet about crypto because I had no one else to talk to about it. And we always wanted to build some stuff. And in 2018, when the market crashed and we saw everybody leaving, it was clear that we should be focusing on products that work during bear markets, because bear markets are really kind of the true test. Bull markets, a lot of stuff works. Bear markets, very few things work. And so we sort of came at it from the lens of what will work in the bear market. And we became very fixated with gaming for that reason.
I absolutely love that. I mean, one of the biggest things that, always attracted, me to you, Elio, is that throughout the entire bear market, bro, you did not slow down on the content creation at all. Like, you were still pumping full steam. And, those are the types of things that, like, you can instantly see from any entrepreneur, any content creator, that they really are serious about what they were building. And then also as founder of Neo Tokyo, I mean, we were talking about this on the last podcast, we all came together through Neo Tokyo as well. So you focus on really good products, and they have a domino effect where we all started our own projects, and now we're building a podcast together, and it all just comes from one person leading. Going off of that, what would you say, like, why is the bear market the kind of the best time to build these products, and why do you seem to be unfazed every single time the bear market comes around? I mean, like, when last bear, your content's, showing up all over my YouTube, and even this bear, same thing, right? Like, you're still all over Twitter, you're still all over YouTube, you're clearly still building when all these other kind of like influencers or builders or entrepreneurs, they seem to kind of like come and go with the amount of liquidity in the markets. And so I kind of just wanted to ask you, about that.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the fact that I understand very clearly the nature of a relationship with a community. And I believe that that is the most important relationship. And so you can't control the charts. You can't control what the headlines might be. You can't control what the Bitcoin whales do. But what you can control is what you do. And you can oftentimes have a pretty good control over your relationship with your community. And I viewed very quickly, I understood that crypto networks and decentralized blockchain projects are effectively groups of people. And so maintaining a strong relationship with those groups of people is the most important to me. And it's been the thing that I believe has been the most instrumental in my growth. And that's why during the bear markets, this is not a time where I make a lot of money. This is not a time I don't accept sponsors. The ad rev isn't there. I actually lose money paying my team and my staff. Yeah, I lose money on the channel every month. But the reason why I do that is because I'm committed to my community, and I know that forming a bedrock of this community, when things get really frothy, you can't control how many people see your content. For example, in the 2021 bull run, I went from about 50,000 subscribers to 500 very, very quickly. And the amount of people who knew me or knew what I was about or had any depth of sort of understanding of my content or my mindset or my approach to the market were probably a small percentage of that. And so I can't control what someone who comes and sees 3 minutes out of my 17,000 hours of content does with that information. But what I can do is continue to devote myself to the people who really do care and have developed that depth of understanding. And those are the people who I hope I can provide good information to and build community around. And so I know that like what we're building on the technology front, on the product front, is going to be industry leading, and it's going to be the stuff that matters for the next generation of this industry, for the next generation of what we think of as internet technology. But I cannot control oftentimes some of those mania phases. So during the bear market, I find that even though things are tricky, they're much harder, right? There's no growth from the audience level. There's no growth on the economic level, but the people and the relationships that you can build and the foundation and bedrock you build there, that's far more important. And the people, from a human element, my commitment to my audience and what I hope I can achieve for myself and for them, I think that that's a lot of that work happens in the bear market where people get set up for the next run. Once things are peaking, everything's going 50, 100x overnight. Things are very volatile. Some people win. A lot of people come in and lose. And it's hard to control those variables. But in the bear market, I think of it as more like controllable, more authentic. And I guess, I think overall the work we do in the bear market has a higher overall net positive impact.
It's a more sobering time, right? When the way I look at it is like financial high tide versus financial low tide. When low tide comes around, you really get to see who has their pants down. Mm-hmm. When things are flowing and the money's flowing and people are aping into things and they're not really thinking. There's a really great book on this called A Short History of Euphoria. It's a book on how really when euphoria comes in or tulip mania comes in, all reason goes out the window. And obviously it's a great time to raise money. It's a great time to come up with ideas and throw things at the wall and see what sticks. But 100%, you're absolutely right, Elio, is that in the financial low tide, when things are a little bit scarce and things are a little bit more difficult, that's absolutely where that bedrock can be formed. But more importantly, that's where that real legitimate value and utility must be developed and created, and that real value is being exchanged. Because obviously in financial high tide, people aren't even thinking about value. They're just thinking, hey, I can turn a quick buck, I can get into a pump, this, that, and the other thing. When in reality, when you're in that low tide, and you've done as you've done, and honestly, some of the other project founders that we're really inspired by is when you're pushing forward in times that are difficult, you're not only proving yourself, but you're also, like you said, building that bedrock, which is an absolutely phenomenal foundation to then go off and be in the bull market and see those massive jumps like you talked about. So I mean, I think that's a very, very important point. Johnny, I know you had some stuff that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of us, Elio and you guys with Steady Stack, and all of our communities are very cultivated and very loyal communities. And that comes from not just being here when things are super euphoric and things are super good, and Steady Stack and TTOO, for example, minted in the bear. And Elio, you've been able to maintain your community and your sentiment throughout these time periods. Let's start on we were talking about the YouTube side and the creator side. What advice would you give a creator who would maybe be new or maybe had rode through the bull, now is through the bear, is not getting those numbers, is not getting that sentiment? What kind of advice would you give a creator in those type of times where it is hard, right? And things aren't euphoric, your numbers aren't going to be going crazy. What kind of advice would you give a new creator in that type of climate to continue making content in this industry?
What I'd say is the same thing I say to people who look at what their portfolio was at all-time highs and what it is now, is that number wasn't real. And as much as that sucks to hear, you weren't ever worth whatever because you didn't sell it and you don't hold it. And what you should measure yourself by is your new lows, right? And it's a really tougher mentality. But we live in a lot of in a world where things can come quickly and go quickly. It's important to measure things with some sobriety. I think San had that term, sobriety. And one of the things that's hard to do is to measure yourself not by your glamorous moments, but by your lower moments. And the real question is when you're a creator, when you're building an online community, is not can I make this go viral, or that is a good question. But in this niche of more finance education, the question is really how many people care about what you have to say and how many people respect what you have to say. And that's the number that probably is the most salient. Now, in the bull market, everyone is like a crack addict for a ticker, right? Give me a ticker, right? And so that's not really a good measure of if people like you and what you have to say. When you're telling people hard news, things that they don't want to hear, but maybe they need to hear, like through the bear market, the amount of people who stick around to take their medicine, not just their spoonful of sugar, that's the audience that cares about what you have to say. And those people might not like what you have to say today, but in 2 years and 3 years and 4 years, they will respect you and they'll still be with you. And so, when I look at, EllioTrades, when I look at the SuperVerse project, when I look at the projects that I'm building, the people who have followed the story know that I've been working on this stuff a very long time, and that I have not taken any days off, and that it is a continuous story, and that each chapter is better than the chapter before. However, if I took a very short-term approach and just said, you know what, I'm not going to make videos this year, just doesn't benefit me, then it kind of violates an unspoken commitment to my audience that I would be there and I would help them understand, at least share my perspective on what's happening. We're not demigods here. We don't control all the variables, but you can at least show up. Right. And so those are the things that I think the people who kind of lost their communities, or who, in so many ways betrayed their communities by not showing up, by not putting in the work throughout the bear. And you don't have to put out daily videos or twice a day videos during the bear, but you do have to put out content consistently. And you do have to show that you're still a believer in the mission. Right. Just because number go down and all of a sudden you have, some new regulator comes out and says they don't like this technology. If that fundamentally shifts everything you said in the bull market, then, it really is, it's a bit of an invalidator on your credibility. It's a credibility issue. And so when I look at the work I do in the bear market, it's about the me in 10 years from now. It's about the project in 10 years from now. And it's about the fact that, EllioTrades bears my name, and it kind of is my name. And so that's the way I view everything is I'm not going anywhere. And you might not believe that in the bull market, when I appear on a list next to other people who didn't do necessarily everything they said they were going to do. But in the bear market, you're going to understand. And in a year from now, you're going to get it. And in 10 years from now, you're really going to believe, because I've built up this history of action. And that's how I operate, is really just based on, my own measure of myself. And it's not really, because believe me, it's financially, audience wise, there's no incentive right now. And that's when I think the most interesting stuff happens, is when there's not that instantaneous incentive.
I 1000% agree. And I mean, just looking at track record, it's very clear. I mean, perfect case study and point is I quite literally remember watching your videos, and in any bear market, when we move from bull to bear, like the focus moves from speculation to value, because people kind of throw the speculation out the door. And I specifically remember you talking about all these different protocols, all these potential layer ones, and you were talking about AVAX, and you were like, here's why I like AVAX. And so when the market started turning up, and I was thinking about what layer ones to look into, I made a killing off of that. And that was because we were focusing on the raw actual product, the tech, during the downtimes. So like that's a perfect case study and point. And it also speaks to your track record. And another really, really cool thing that you mentioned was the communities, right? Like there's so much power in these communities that, we have the opportunity to lead and steward. And the name of this podcast is The Futurist. And I think one of the most special things about NFTs as a whole is the fact that we're able to combine product and community in a way that's never been done before. We're able to get this flywheel of feedback from our customers in ways that have never been done before. I saw this interview with the YouTube founders, and they literally attribute the success of YouTube to their early stage community who was actually giving them feedback on the platform, right? And so it's like with NFTs in these communities, we have that direct experience and platform to be able to be working with them. And so I think that we're going to start seeing like Discord communities pop up even as a standard with even like things like beauty products. Because when you look at something like Kylie Cosmetics, I could imagine a smaller player coming in and attaching a community aspect. And now all those people who identify with these brands, because at the end of the day, like what is Steady Stack, for example? It's a brand, right? Like a lot of these projects, what they're building is brands. And there's that unique opportunity to relate directly with an audience. And so I thought that was just a really cool thing to add, because you mentioned communities, and you always just get me thinking.
Because that's all that matters. It's literally all that matters, right? We always talk about, even years ago, we were telling people it's not product market fit, it's market product fit. If you can understand your market, you can understand the people you want to serve, you can understand their problems more intimately than they can even verbalize them, and then you can find ways to solve their problems in unique and novel ways that haven't been done before, that have that marginal increase in benefit. It's like, dude, no matter what, right? Same thing with you, Elio, your reputation. Look how you showed up during the bear market. It's like you showed up this way. Now that reputation's there. The next time shit hits the fan, everyone that follows you is going to be like, yo, Elio's going to stick around. They're not going to just disappear and make some stupid ass decisions like we've seen with 99% of the space. So,
yep. And I wanted to take us just a little bit off track for just a second, and ask your opinion on the market. So like we're literally seeing as we speak, we mentioned the bear market, and the incentives really they're not there for the builders, but we're also seeing a pump at the same time. Bitcoin is moving from, we saw it at 16K a few months ago all the way up to nearly 30K now. I mean, there's all this chaos in the markets about, the banks collapsing, and, is the US, dollar not going to be the reserve currency anymore? All this stuff going on. You're definitely somebody who I look up to, and to get these types of insights from. What do you think's going on? Where do you see the market? Are we out of the woods, do you think, with this bear market? What are you seeing right now, Elio?
Yeah, I believe that what we've seen is a very interesting set of data. And one of the things that you'll notice after being through the cycle a few times, this will be my second full bear market. And so the biggest thing was that we had the new advent of a changing federal sort of macro climate. And that led to a lot of logic as to why things are going the way they've been going. We also flushed a lot of leverage. We flushed a lot of bad actors. And now we've seen some pretty promising things where the 4-year cycle seems to be playing out like clockwork. And that seems to be really, really frustrating to people. I'm a true believer that, Bitcoin and blockchain are a 0 to 1 innovation that is going to transform our financial world. And that comes from, 10,000 hours of research pretty much. But at the same time, it can be very, very infatuating to jump onto other narratives. And what we're seeing right now is that I believe, based on the sort of financial instability in the world, we saw the first chapter of the de-risking was a liquidity crisis where everyone wanted to get into USD. Now, of course, there was a lot of macro hedge fund bros that had jumped into Bitcoin during the 2020 quantitative easing. And those people de-risked, and that caused a huge flush of price. Then we saw some bad actors get flushed, some liquidation cascades, and we got ourselves down to our ultimate lows, which I believe, there's a small chance we do revisit those lows or go lower. But I think when you look back at the series of events that led us down to 15K, you realize that was a lot of sort of compounding leverage to the downside. I was not a believer in the rally until we started seeing the pump as a result of the bailouts. Now, once we saw the bailouts, that to me really fundamentally changed the nature of where we're at, because we really didn't know, like, how hard is this going to be? How much is the Fed willing to break? And now what we're seeing is that what the Fed's done and the actions of sort of the, the government as a whole around the US dollar have not only really screwed things up, but they've actually caused a huge amount of distrust globally in the US dollar as a currency. I believe we're at a sort of new paradigm shift right now where who knows what could happen. We have wars breaking out. We have global macro uncertainty, however many risks within the economy, which are not, we don't need to go through and name them. But the point is, I believe the risk of not holding is now greater than the risk of the volatility. And that when we look at what the next run might hold in store, the idea that we will trade for a significant amount of time under 20K, that we will trade for a significant amount of time under 15K for an extended amount of time doesn't seem super likely. Could we go down there? Totally. Could we stay down there for a while? Yes. Am I prepared to buy a lot down there? Absolutely. But is this something where I think like buying Bitcoin at these levels is crazy dumb, and that we're now that you're buying into this elevated price asset? No, in fact, I think Bitcoin over time, specifically over the last few months, has started to look like a de-risked type of asset. And especially as you look at people turning their back on the dollar, I mean, people need to store their money somewhere. They need to store their wealth somewhere. And Bitcoin is increasingly becoming an interesting chart to look at. Now, from a macro perspective, Dixie is at support, Bitcoin is at resistance, gold is at resistance. These are interesting times, right? These are very interesting times. Short term, I don't know what's going to happen. Long term, I'm very, very excited about the future of Bitcoin, crypto in general, and I'm also very excited about the fact that if any one nation, which shall not be named, decides to turn their back on this industry, others will jump up and support. And I think the discussion has seemed very one-sided right now, but it's becoming far more two-sided in the United States in specific. I've always been a believer that innovation will win out.
I agree, and I also tend to agree on Bitcoin looking like a de-risk asset. I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but I remember back in 2017, I was around a lot of Bitcoin maxis. And they always told me, they said, look, when the banks start to fail, that's when you know that Bitcoin's time is coming. Because obviously, even in the Bitcoin white paper, that Bitcoin was developed as a result of the 2008 financial crisis, basically, showing the world that, hey, your dollar isn't really backed by anything besides the US government swinging their dick around. Your money can get printed at will, and when the banks mismanage their capital and they create financial risk for everyone and shit goes bad, they just get bailed out. Obviously, we just saw what happened with SVB, which Hassan and I were literally stressing our brains out because obviously we had a good amount of cash in USDC and things like that, and it was pretty harrowing. But this is where the fundamentals of Bitcoin are really going to start to shine. It's like people are becoming more and more aware that this is scary. Those FDIC insurances, what does it really mean if they're just going to print money to bail people out for mismanaging funds, and just throwing money around and trading in the futures market, Forex markets like it's nothing, losing all their money, and then having, the US government come in and step in. Even if they bail you out, your dollar is getting destroyed. They're printing trillions. So.
And the thing is, markets are forward looking, as you guys well know, and people are understanding and not just saying, hey, look, hyperinflation is coming, blah, blah, blah. They're saying, we're not going to stick around to see, and that's the thing is the people aren't trying to stick around and find out. Right now, we have for the first time an escape valve, and it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing an attack on the industry from the headlines, and even the government going so far as to almost like revenge sell some Bitcoin is what it feels like, which is funny to me because it's like, you really thought that was going to hurt us. Like, people are happy for you to not hold it. And so that's it's just really funny, and it kind of, tomorrow we have the ETH Shanghai upgrade. I don't know when you guys are going to air this episode, probably not before then, but a lot of people have been clamoring on about how how risky this is and how all this new ETH is going to flood the ecosystem. And I think it's pretty funny because you look at the ETH staking ratio compared to AVAX or BNB or any of these, and all of them have like 60, 70, 80%, 90% in BNB's case, staking participation, and ETH is like 14%. And I'm saying, look, you could believe in ETH, but if someone says you have to lock your ETH away for infinity, we don't know when, come back and let us know. Maybe in a year, maybe never. We'll figure it out. That's a pretty raw deal for a 5% yield. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people, the logic that this is some all of a sudden all the stakers are just going to dump, like that's what they've been waiting for. No, the people who staked for infinity are not dumping. Like they're here and they're chilling. And so the real question is how many new people are going to start staking because they can easily withdraw. And my answer to that would be probably more than withdraw and sell. And I believe that you'll start to see ETH staking participation skyrocket, and that'll be really, really, really good. So yeah, the logic to me that that this is a bad news event is funny. The other evidence I'll use for that is the ETH BTC ratio has been getting killed of late. Now, what do we know about crypto is they usually like to sell the news, or in this case, if they're selling before the news, it's probably as always, buy the news event, right? Wow. Where if people are de-risking before, it's probably the opposite of what the news event or what the actual catalyst will be. And when there's a big run up in price into a news event, it's usually the opposite of what the catalyst, could or should be. And so that's kind of my take. I think Banter Rand had a similar take this morning where he said he expects it to be a bullish catalyst for ETH BTC ratio to creep up and for it to ignite the alts. We've seen alts lag this year. It feels very 2019 in every single way, and that's probably the best thing we can say about the market.
Yeah. I agree tenfold on everything regarding Bitcoin. And on the Ethereum, H just pulled up the chart, and you see the sell-offs already happening. It does seem like the reverse event. I think that psychology is actually on point, Elio. And I want to get into another thesis quickly that I know you're super bullish on and you're building in, and it's NFTs, but not only NFTs, it's NFTs in gaming. Can you kind of give an update maybe for someone, I know you and I specifically are super bullish on NFT gaming, but someone might be listening to this podcast and have no idea the fit that NFTs and gaming do have together. And then we can talk a bit about imposters before we close it out. But what's your thesis on gaming and specifically NFTs in video games?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people just get frustrated about is when they hear about something and it doesn't happen immediately, or there's not that immediate viral growth hockey stick. This happened for many years with AI. We heard about AI so many times, and then there was nothing. In fact, there was an AI coin season back in 2017 or 2018, actually, where I actually bought into SingularityNet and some of these other things the day they launched on things like Ether Delta and all these different sites. I think SingularityNet was actually on. I think SingularityNet was actually on Neo at first, if I remember correctly. It was anyway. That's not the point. The point is the gaming thing has frustrated people because it hasn't happened yet. But there is no question that there's absolutely no other narrative and there's no other product category that's capable of onboarding millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and eventually billions of users. When you ask people and you say, hey, do you want to try this new social media network? They're going to go, no. You say, hey, do you want to try a new search engine? You want to say, no. You want to try this competitor to Amazon? Absolutely not. Do you want to try a new game? Yeah, I'd like that. The psychology of gaming is one of new products always have a new way to get in and new way to spread around. And the biggest challenge for the games is one, they take a long time to build. So from the moment, I would say the Axie moment is where gaming got validated as a real use case for blockchain. And that's when funding started pouring in. So middle 2021, sort of Q3 2021 is when it sort of started. And that's when you had people starting to round up funding. Games take 2 to 4 years to build at quality. So you're looking at, like sort of end of this year to, the next 2 years is where some of those games that got funding will start to come out and start to really show themselves. Now, luckily, I started down this journey way before that. We certainly did not have any mega amounts of funding. But the Axie Infinity run was amazing for the narrative and for supporting and for bringing in VCs into what we're doing as well and other types of funding. And so we are several years ahead of these games. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is for people to realize the core mechanism by which games get recognized and distributed is through content. And that's something that I think people are really trying to avoid. They go, oh, this game is so high res. It's got such good graphics. Look at the feel. It's so AAA. And the only thing people should be talking about is which content creators are going to cover this and who's going to make content about this. Because if you do not have content creators within the gaming space covering it and using it for content, then the game doesn't really exist on a cultural level. And so when you look at Dead Drop, which is Dr. Disrespect's new game, it's getting all the hype because it's being put out there by a big creator, and that creator is staking his reputation on it, and it's going to get played regardless of the NFT thing. Anyone who thinks that people care about whether NFTs are in the game or not, no, people just love being outraged. They found something to be outraged about that week. But in the end, gamers revolted against in-game currency. They revolted against microtransactions. They revolted against everything. And those are now the way the industry works. It doesn't matter. And so what matters is, are content creators going to play it? And will this game compete with other games in its genre? Will it be better than, or more fun than, or offer something distinct to other games in the genre? Now, for that reason, it's really hard for me to see the real lane for first-person shooters because there's just so many of them, right? Though I'm sure there will be some successful ones. It's just really hard to understand when something like a Call of Duty and like Valorant and CS:GO and all these games are just so dominant within the industry. Other games, I think, from my perspective, that are in different genres have a better shot. Different genres that are less overdeveloped, that have less AAA sort of institutionalized chokeholds on the industry. And most importantly, games that I think will be good fodder for content. That's my mental model, because once the influencers in the gaming space adopt a title and it helps them make content, that is the mechanism by which these grow. And that's where items become very interesting for people to own, because having cool visuals on your items, on your game, is what makes it fun to show off in content and that stuff. So the whole economics of NFTs in gaming makes sense to me with multiplayer games, in games that I believe streamers will want to play. And obviously something like Dead Drop makes sense because you've arguably the biggest, most influential creator in the entire space behind it. But there will be other such examples. And that's fundamentally how we're building Impostors, which is a social game. And a lot of people in the crypto space don't play these social games. They're more financial, they're more analytical, but they don't understand that there's this genre with 600 million plus players without any real AAA stranglehold, without any kind of force that I believe is too strong to overcome. And most importantly, this is purely about content. This is only about content, is what social games are about. And the focus, the hyper focus on providing an experience that content creators can go into. By the way, we're lucky to have some of the biggest content creators in the space, in the gaming space, in the mainstream gaming space as investors. We haven't disclosed those yet. We will at a future stage of the project.
Alpha.
I can't. Yeah. No, this one we're saving, boys. But and I have saved it for a very long time for a reason. But when we talk to these people who, if you search Among Us videos or social deduction videos on YouTube, they hold some of the biggest videos in history in that genre consistently. We ask them, why did you guys enjoy this video game so much? What brought you to it? Why did you play it? Why did you make content? And they said that they had never had more fun making content in any other game, and that the content was never easier to make. So when we talk about products, especially like in the Silicon Valley world, there was a saying, is it a vitamin or is it a painkiller? And in my opinion, games that allow for easier, more fluid content creation are painkillers to the content creator. And we will always choose a painkiller over a vitamin. And that is the sort of framework that I think is really critical here, is that any kind of tool that helps these creators make better content, more viral content, makes their day easier and more productive, that's a painkiller.
Bro, that was as futurist of an answer as you could have. So we got the perfect guest on. We're gonna need you back, because that was
an amazing answer. Yeah, and Elio, I agree with you on the fact that everyone, like, they flock to the first-person shooters in the space, but you still have to make a game that competes with those AAA giants with hundreds and hundreds of developers and billions of dollars behind them. And I think that first wave of games, that Axie wave, it washed out the fact that it can't just be a game on the blockchain anymore, right? At first, that worked. Like, if it's a game that has crypto enabled, and earnings and stuff like that, it worked at first, right? And then that cycle washed out just like it did with the crap NFTs and the crap crypto projects over the time. So I think you hit a home run with that answer. And, expand for anyone that doesn't know what Impostors is. really quickly before we hop off, and then you can, tell people where to
how
follow you.
are you implementing all of this, Elio, bro? Because I don't know anybody who understands this more than you, and you're completely right. I mean, we even at Steady Stack, I mean, it's a brand, right? And so we're looking at the avenues that we believe are going to help, take all of this tech to the masses. And so, I mean, I would just love to hear, how are you implementing all of this with Impostors and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, the first thing we did was we built an extremely fun game loop that we believe is the best in its genre. We believe at this current moment that we have the best social deduction game. Now, that is not nearly enough for us, as we are looking to expand the definition of what a social gaming community is and what a content creator community is, and at its core identity. Right. And right from the branding identity up to the daily activities you can participate in, the value and meaning and significance of holding the assets, what that experience is like, the in-game experience, the tools around the in-game experience that allow for more fluid content creation, and eventually the relationships with your audience that you can build through this experience. So, we have been really iterating in silence and quietly as in a closed beta stage. And this is where we've been able to really fine tune the gaming experience. We're coming up to an open beta stage at some point this year. And that's when you'll start to see several more sort of prongs of our implementation of our strategy come to light. And that'll be a really fun phase. And so that's when you'll sort of see us kind of kick things off into a brave new world here. But things are really ramping up. We're just kind of getting we're just warming up really. And so there's two next phases of the project. There's the open beta phase where there'll be opportunities for people to not only play and enjoy the game who don't hold the assets. The game will be playable, and you can experience a lot more stuff in the game, not just during our events, but at a lot more times throughout the week and eventually 24/7. And then we'll have a worldwide release where we'll be, cultivating a true go-to-market plan. That's when you'll start to see sort of dynamic changes within the project that are very well planned out. And so we've purposefully been using a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of space to iterate on the in-game experience, which takes time to get right. And it's an arduous but fun and rewarding experience. There's just a lot of time there in building a quality game. And so we're blessed to have probably, I think, like one of the most positive, excited, just hardcore communities that is there in the Impostors Discord and the holder base. And those are the people that, have been pushing this forward week over week. Now, after that, we're going to be opening this up, and you're going to start to see sort of a coming out party later this year for Impostors. And that's going to be really exciting.
I mean, it comes from the top down, brother. Like you're the most passionate and you're the leader, of this space, I would say. And so your community is going to be a reflection of that. Johnny, if you had anything to close out with, I mean, Elio, this was an amazing pod. Thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for just putting together the best communities in the world. Like, again, we literally met through Neo Tokyo, which is a membership. Literally, you go on OpenSea, you click on memberships. It's always going to be sitting there. Steady Stack's usually there as well, TTOO. And so thank you for being a leader to us, bro. And I really look forward to having you on the next one, because I have more questions. And we're out of time.
I love the diversity too. Like we hit on everything. Go ahead, Elio.
Yeah, well, supporting you guys is part of the mission, right? Because we created, when I got together with Becker, it's a funny story, which I won't tell now. When we first started communicating back in 2021 about the markets, and I sort of explained to him my thesis on gaming. I know he had been developing games. He already had like a game he had developed that was like a Doom clone and stuff. And he was obviously clearly very serious about gaming and knew his way around all sorts of crypto, as well as making money online and all that stuff, and clearly had an extremely successful business in Hyros. Things clicked, and we started talking about how there's just really needed to be a cultural hub for that future of the industry, and that I'm building this, but I said I wish there was this group I could come to and sort of nurture this flame with, and have other like-minded people who believe and who want to help create this future. And so building a community of builders, which is what fundamentally Neo Tokyo is, requires for us to all help each other out and to support each other on the journey. And Steady Stack, you guys have taken really good care of your community, which is largely a Neo Tokyo community as well. So obviously you got to love that, right? And I think like the Steady Stack trajectory proves the model for Neo Tokyo. And so, I'm around obviously to support you guys and to hopefully continue to see you guys completely thrive, because that proves out everything that we want to achieve with Neo Tokyo in general.
Bro, it's working. It's definitely working.
And I was going to throw in too, you can look at like ecosystems, blockchains, and they usually have like ecosystem charts. And I've recently seen Neo Tokyo project ecosystem charts, and that's amazing to see. Like the vision has completely come true. So, I mean, y'all definitely cultivated that culture. I wouldn't have met Zan and Hassan if it wasn't for, Steady Stack. And there's tons of other builders in the space, the same way. So Ellio, once again, thank you so much for your time. I know time is a virtue in the space. Where can people find you for more?
At EllioTrades on Twitter, at EllioTrades, I think official on YouTube. There's no Instagram for me. There's a bunch of botted, scammy Instagrams. It's not mine. We're going to try to get them removed here in the next little bit. But yeah, Twitter and YouTube, and in general, I'll be out here building. So I look forward to meeting all of you. If you ever join one of the communities, I'll see you guys maybe in the Steady Stack Discord, maybe in Neo Tokyo. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing and meeting all of you guys sometime in the future, because I know people, if you're listening to the Futurist podcast, you're probably going to be a force to be reckoned with at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Ellio, thank you so much for the time. We'll drop all the links for Ellio and obviously Zan and Hassan down below if you want to give a follow to all my co-hosts and our awesome guests for this podcast. I think once again, we covered so many high value topics. Ellio, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Futurist. Like down below, subscribe, and follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you're watching or listening. We will see you on next week's edition.